Okay. Uh, my name's Jake. Um, I made a video. I made an animation called The Drive-In. It's a mixed media animation. It's my first project, I guess, and figured I'd just make kind of a breakdown on how I made it, how I went about it. Um, First thing I want to say is that I made it on an iPad Air. I just traded it in an iPad Air 4. I think it came out in 2020. It had like 64 gigabytes of storage and crashed almost every single time I used it. So I just traded it in for a new one. But the entire project was made on that iPad in Procreate or in Procreate Dreams. Um, yeah. So, anyways, I figured I'd just break down kind of the um, first scene or whatnot. So here's the opener. It says 4 gigabytes. It definitely could have been way smaller than that, but I'll just open up the Dreams file. Um, I'm pretty new to Dreams. I've used Procreate for a while, but um, pretty new to Dreams itself and honestly animation. Um, this project was made for the film society here in my hometown, and they just hired me out to do it animation for the introduction of their movies to show their sponsors. So the original project itself has sponsor cards and whatnot in it, um, but I figured I might as well just walk kind of through the actual animation side of things. Um, so um, Starts off in this scene here. Um, Kind of zoom in and can see all the elements. So all these images are just cutouts from different stock images online that I got for free on Pexels or Unsplash or um, any of those free public domain websites. That yeah, there's not the greatest selection, but you kind of just do it with what you can and distort things and whatnot. Um, so that's all these images are from. And this opening animation is just a basic kind of just bounced everything in real quick with a little bit of sound behind it. Um, but yeah, basically just a bunch of different layers. You can kind of zoom in and walk through all of these guys here. I don't really have any system for laying out my project. I should probably do that later, but for right now, I just kind of have all the different layers starting in the back and then moving forward. Um, I wonder if it would be helpful to. I'm going to open up the Procreate file. Okay, cool. So here's the Procreate file, and I can kind of just walk through the um, everything. So, whoop, those are the shadows. So basically, just have these different hills here, and I'll do this real quick. So kind of just organized into this area, this area, this one, and this one. There wasn't really any rhyme or reason to the image. These mountains back here are from the local mountain range, but other than that, um, yeah. Um, let's see. In terms of the road's just one. You can kind of see, but it's all just from one image. That it didn't look like that in the beginning at all. Actually, um, it was just I kind of distorted it around the mountain, and if you zoom in, you can see the distortions, uh, especially on this one here. Um, but that's all that was is kind of going through, and maybe I can show it real quick. Going through and taking these and just using the distortion tool and um, kind of figuring out how to make that fit, and then um, warping it and whatnot to fit the mountain's curve. Uh, in terms of the shadowing, basically just took the images of whether it's the flower or these little camera lenses or in the cloud, and just copied them. And let's see, where's that? Just copied them and distorted them on the ground, and made them black, and then turned them into a shadow at a pretty low opacity, just to kind of give it with this. I found with this animation that I definitely could have gone a lot more realistic, but because it's a collage and everything's already looks very pieced together, that I didn't have to spend too much time with that type of work. Um, so I kind of forgot and it messed up this recording, but yeah, let me turn on my light. But I just wanted to show really quick kind of what my process was when I was building out some of these scenes. So you just kind of go. I would go to Unsplash, or you could go to Pexels as well, or whatever you like to use to get free images. And then I would just try to find something that had kind of a crisp line in between where the mountain starts or whatever I was trying to cut out. So this is a good one here because you really can pick out where the jaggeds are. And then I would usually download the largest size so that I had room to work with, especially because it's a background, being able to move that around wherever I needed to do that. So I would just download that. And then find another. So I'd have something like this. Let me grab my pencil here. And Procreate, their software for the automatic cutout it's not good. Does not do a great job. So what I would do is usually I'd go in manually in freehand my whole way through this, and because it's like a magazine cutout looking, a lot of it, I would keep it. I would try to get it pretty close, and it depended on what I was cutting out. But usually I would kind of just make this line around it, and do a deal. And maybe I'll do that really quick. Yeah, I'm gonna do that really quick. Okay. So obviously, super basic and rough, and this guy's still got a bunch of stuff, but you can kind of see that a lot of the time that's kind of how it went. But you just keep adding and adding and adding and building these scenes out, and getting things lined out, and so that they're balanced. Right now, there's some weird, this is barely overlaying, and there's some weird stuff, but and you can mess with, where everything's at. So can add a Gaussian blur here for some depth, and maybe some noise for these back clouds, and you can do all types of things, but basically that's kind of what went into building the scenes out. And some of the other scenes, like the snow scene, for instance. Go into here, and I'll probably make another tutorial, or not a tutorial, but a video. But this one was super elaborate because I had to add in all these guys back and behind, and adding the lines and fixing out the perspective of everything. But yeah, so that's basically what went into it. And here's kind of a breakdown of all the different images and whatnot that I used. So all of these probably, in all, there's probably 1,000 pictures or whatnot, but yeah. So anyways, if I go back into this scene, you can see these flowers here, and the butterflies, and all those were I took the flower and actually I think I have it here, maybe. Yeah. Let's see if I can pull that up. So all I did was distort the flower, and if we go back and just highlight, all I did was pull these, or not distort, sorry, but warp the flower down, and so I just kind of made this unfolding effect. And like I said, it's obviously not perfect, but when the animation runs, you can't really tell. It's not too noticeable. So I had those unfurl and then kind of pop out and make this little pop in effect just to add a little bit more to when the scene unveils. And same for the butterfly. The butterfly is actually just a few different images of butterflies I found, and I just changed the saturation of them to make them all blue and warped them once again to create this just flapping effect here. So that's all that was. So the project just unveils with that, with these butterflies kind of flapping around, and the butterfly movement is just that animation repeated over and over again. Let's see, I'll go into that really quick. But oh, my Siri went off. It's just that animation repeated over and over again in the groups. Even if you break it down even further, there's all those frames. But then I use the whatever this tool is, the tracking tool, and basically just drew a line with this while it popped out, and you can kind of see I can move that wherever I want. And then when I play it back, that butterfly will kind of do whatever I wanted it to do. So yeah, that's all that was. And I just did that different layers back there. I also had a cloud overlay, and that was just done with in the drawing, wherever that is. Make sure I'm still recording. I just did another track and took the cloud brush. I think it's in Elements. Yeah. And just did a light haze over and animated that across with that drag, with this tool, that recording tool. Let's see what else in this first guy. The toughest animation in this first video, or this first frame, scene, whatever you call it, I don't really know, was obviously the van coming into frame, and you can kind of see all the layers here broken down. I tried to, if there's, I put all the flowers in one area, or the mountains, the background, and the grass. So it wasn't too cluttered, but and you can even see it. Like originally I'd done the audio in Procreate Dreams too. At the end, I kind of put everything into just a basic video editing software and put basic audio stuff over it because I don't really know too much about that. But in terms of the van, let's see where that group is at. Okay, so like I said, I'm not a very good organizer. So the van was actually in this flower section here, just the first part, because I had to break it up when it goes over that hill. But all this was if I expand it out a little bit, I literally went in frame by frame and just distorted the van to kind of go with the shape of the road. And like I said, none of this is perfect. Like right there, it's probably not the most convincing. Um, and then I just moved it down the track, tried to be at a constant speed. And then when I got to the end here, I just made it pretty small. So when you watch it back, it looks pretty good, I would say. Looking back on it now, I could have done a little bit better job, and maybe I could have added some shadows. That would have been pretty cool. But oh, maybe I guess I did. I forgot about that. But yeah, so that's all the band was just distorting each frame by frame. And that's super easy. You just go in here and mess with this until it looks right. And you could probably do it with the tracking deal. I chose to do it frame by frame because it was had a little more control over it. But yeah. Um, in terms of this very beginning, I guess I can talk about that really quick. It wasn't anything special. Here's where we introduced the sponsors, and this was just kind of a super basic deal. And I had all these clouds in the background moving pretty slow, and then I dropped it down. And all this very beginning was literally like 40 different like 40 different clouds coming down into this world. So when you crop it in, it opens up. But those flowers pop up and the butterflies kind of jump around. So yeah, that is it's basically it for the first opening scene. I can definitely I might as well, while I'm here, break down these other guys. Oops. I've never made a video before, so if you can't tell. So let's open up. Let's just go. This wheel shot's pretty basic. Basically just kind of same thing. Had that background built out. And what I like to do on all the shots was, and this was something I had picked up from other guys who made tutorials, but just having that the closest background and going further back, moving at different paces to show that change in speed, and then have this blurry grass in the foreground, and that's just repeating over and over again, which is kind of it's kind of an annoying thing to make, actually. And you just kind of layer over each other so that when one goes through, the next one starts. And I tend to type those in, and have those laid out manually. I use the move tool and the move and scale, and then punch in the numbers here, and then where it needs to be on the next one, and punch in those numbers. Just so I have a little more consistency there. And then I had a big flower kind of pass through every once in a while here, just to add some more. But let's see, what else? Had some more butterflies flying around in the background. Just a little more ambiance, I guess. And the tire itself is nothing crazy. It's just a van stock image that I took, and I added that film logo on there because that's the company's logo that I had. And just added a little bit of shake and like for this yellow up part, I just used this tracking tool and took one of these corners and just shook it around a little bit. And then with the tire, I did the same thing, but the hard part with the tire is you kind of have to do two different trackings, because you have to track the rotation first, and then you have to track the bouncing. So what you can do with that is, if you put the rotation in here, and then bounce the bounce the thing as a whole and the separate. So if you make two groups, then in the first group you do the rotation, and then you make another group on top of that and add the bouncing. That way the wheel stays in one spot, and it's spinning on its own already, and then you can add the shake later on. And then the road was the same thing as the grass, just separate layers, connecting to each other and passing through. And then I just had some softer clouds in the background moving at their own pace. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. It looks pretty funky when it's not in frame, but and I just moved it back, the camera back a little bit. So just changing the sizing of the tire, pulling it out a little bit, if that makes sense. With that, when on that shake here, you can see it starts out and the scale is 1:1, and then at the end it's 0.7. So just bringing that back to add a little bit more camera movement. So for this shot here, this was kind of a fun one. The goal was to just get some B-roll type shots, and so an idea I had was to have that mirror, and it looks like kind of a crap job. I'm not gonna lie, the outer edge, but it just adds more to that collage-y aspect. And all I did on this one was created a video, and honestly, I could have taken that last shot and just put it in here, and just made a mask, I'm pretty sure, and just masked that video inside of this mirror. And so, and you can kind of see, like, right here, here's the clipping mask. So if I were to turn that off, oh, that was just for the fog, I guess, but this clipping mask here, so if I turn this off, there's just a white circle that fills the mirror, and then I had this video that I had already made. And so basically, I mean, you could put whatever you wanted in here, but I had this video already made, kind of looking like it's going behind, and then I just put that and masked it into that space. So, and then I had a couple flowers passing by in the background, show he's moving with the clouds. The clouds, let's see, the clouds I would use, and I made their anchor point. I believe anchor point's down here, and so all the clouds are coming from one area, so that it looks like there's an overhead shot, and then just scale them to that, and just would blur them out as they came over the top, if that makes sense. And I just did that for a couple clouds. Had some birds flying in the background, and for that it was the same as the butterfly. Just had a few different frames here. Just different flapping frames. Let's see if I can show that, I guess. Let's see, where do the birds come into frame? Right there. So, well, no, these ones, like, look how basic, those ones I put in there too, and there's really nothing to it. I don't even know if I kept these eagles in the shot. It says they are, but I don't know where they're at, so. Oh, here it is. Here's the bird. Like, see, he comes past through the clouds. And then you can kind of see just a couple different images. So just splice those together and then move them along the track with this tool again, the record tool. So, And really, I feel like for Procreate Dreams, that's the one thing they have that's really stands out. The performance tool. That's what it's called, performance tool. I haven't really used any other 2D animation software. Will classify myself as a pretty beginner 2D animator, but I had a lot of fun using that tool because you can make some really organic movements, and especially for this collagey feel, like for instance, the arm swinging back and forth. Um, it really just it makes things a lot quicker in that process, and also a little bit more simpler. But you can just see like all I did here was took a corner and just moved this back and forth, and then because it was in a group, um, I could shake it and I can do whatever I needed to do to it. But um, so and then for this guy, this is another one, pretty much the exact same as the first in what I ended up doing with this distortion. Just took the van again, and as it came over the hill, just distorted it back. I believe it's down in here. Yeah, so like it doesn't look normal at all, but just trying to show that it's coming over this hill. And this one, I think I did actually use the performance tool as it slowly came over. The reason it's broken up and there's one here and there's one there is because I needed it to be on a layer behind the road. So the first one starts behind the road, and then the second part of the car starts above it, so that the tires can be seen and it's not chopped off. But yeah, and this is the first introduction of the character. So the character is in this group here, in this van, and got his arm swinging out the side. And I put the character inside the van so that I can make the van one whole group and move it on its own, and then the character would follow those movements, but also he could be animated to do whatever he wanted to do. So whether it was shaking his head or any of the other elements of his face could move. So these are just the windows in the back of the car following with, and then here's the tires. Obviously nothing crazy, but just added a little bit of shake to them with that performance tool. But yeah, and then to add a little bit more depth into the shot, I just added some clouds between the layers, so you've got this kind of majestic clouds passing through and opening up as the car rolls through, and gets rolls on past there like that out of the frame. So yeah, that's basically it. I think for the first shot, once again, just translated some of the shadows and had them sit down. But like if I go in and actually break down the hills and whatnot, you can kind of see like there's really not much to it. I would just cut out an image and place it in there and just kind of keep building in depth until it looked good. And you could really go for forever on those things. And like these tiny little flowers, I had them shoot and pop up. And that stuff, it takes 30 minutes, and you really don't notice it, but they are fun to make, and sometimes they do add to it a little bit. So yeah. But anyways, if you're watching this, I hope you kind of got something out of it. Hope you could learn maybe a little bit thing here or there. I guess the last thing, I didn't talk about this butterfly. But I really like having these butterflies, and anything that's close to the camera, you could add a lot of depth by just putting something super close to the camera and then adding a Gaussian blur. And that's all that is. So I I found that really useful in this style of animation, because they're all so flat and two-dimensional images. Um, Doing anything shadowing or subtle blurs or whatnot adds a lot of depth. So yeah. Anyways, uh, I'll definitely try to make another video on some of the later stuff and maybe some of how I made the scenes and characters. But if there's anything else I could elaborate on, if anybody watches this, let me know. Thanks.